Okay, in this video we're going to go over how to route the suction line of our Unit 1, which comes from vessel 102, as you can see on your PNID on page 150, and it goes to pumps 101A and B. So you're going to want to mark page 150 on in your book, and also page 216. We're going to be referring to both those pages. Okay, so as I've said before, and will say often, you always want to look at where you're at in your hierarchy. We are in the piping zone because that's where we're going to create a piece of pipe. Okay, we want to make sure we're in the pipework application like we have above. You also want to click on this tab and make sure that says piping. Okay, so we're in the piping zone, and we're going to create up at the top. Pick the Create tab, a new pipe. Okay, so we get a window where we can put a few details about the pipe. The first one is the pipe name, which, as we can see from our PNID, is 01-6-C30-10 inch. The primary system is going to let you put down whether it's a drain line, a production line, nitrogen line, and so on, setting up the system. For our school purposes, we're going to leave that blank. If our line was sloped, this is where we would put that in. We want to set the specification. Our C30 in our line number tells us it's a 300 pound, so I'm going to click 300 pound. It's not insulated, there's no tracing on it, so I'm just going to leave those as they are. Click OK. I'm going to click on Attributes, and we get another window which allows you to put in a lot of information, temperatures, pressures, and so on. The only thing we want to do right here is pick our size. I'm in millimeters because my system is set up for that at work, but you will have inches on there, so you'll want to pick 10 inches. In my case, I'm going to hit 250. But again, you're going to want to pick 10 inches on here. Click OK. Alright, so we're going to hit OK on this window. Now we're going to create a branch. As you can see in the hierarchy over here in our members list, actually on both sides, it has created our pipe for us, and now we're working on the branch. Okay, it automatically sets a name for us. The spec should be set already. All we want to do here is connect the head or the tail. Okay, you always want to build your line in the direction that the flow is going. So our head, that means that the head of our pipe is going to be at this nozzle from our V101, vessel 101. I'm sorry, vessel 102. Okay, so we're going to connect the head and the tail. I'm going to hit OK. And here you have a chance to select the head or the tail. In this case, we want to work with the head. And it says, what are you connecting to? You have a lot of different options here, but we are connecting to a nozzle. And I'm going to hit apply. And as you can see, our windows get faded because PDMS is expecting you to pick an object on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this nozzle by clicking on it. One click. Okay, and now let's go ahead and set our tail since we're here. Again, we're going to connect to the nozzle of this pump, so that's fine. I'm going to hit apply, choose this nozzle, and as you can see, we now have a dash line going from our nozzle on 102 to the suction nozzle of our pump, and it's a dash line because it's geometrically incorrect. Until we add all the components in here, it's going to be dashed. then you'll see how the dashed line goes away as we start to add components. Okay, so I'm going to dismiss this window, and now we're going to create a component. Okay, pick create component, and we get our component window. Our 300 pound is set because we've already set it at the branch level. Okay, we don't have any insulation or any tracing. If we did, we would want to check either of these boxes, but we don't. The forward button tells us we're working in forward mode. If we wanted to work in backwards mode, we would click that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. Okay, so we're working in forwards modes. The first component connected to a nozzle is going to be a gasket. So we just click that, and you want to make sure that these boxes are checked. The default box and the auto connect box. And you'll see why in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to click gasket. I'm going to hit create. Since there's only one choice, one type of gasket at this spec for this size, it automatically picks that gasket, and it's put it into our hierarchy. And as you can see, if we rotate so we can see this nozzle, it has gone ahead and connected it for us. The red circle represents the gasket. Okay, if we didn't have this box checked, it would not have automatically connected it for us, but since we do, it did that for us. So the next component that comes after a gasket is a flange. I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to hit create again, and you can see it automatically positions it for us right where we want it. So the next component, if you look on page 216, you'll see the next thing we need to put is an elbow. So we're going to look for elbow here, highlight it, and hit create, and it automatically pops it in. In this case, it automatically put it headed north. That's the default. If we want to switch this around, there's a few different ways to do it. Since we have this menu open already, we can hit direct south, and you can see what it does. It automatically turns that for us. We could also put direct dir space south if we wanted to use syntax. See, direct space n for north. It automatically just flips that around to the direction that you're specifying. Okay, so as we can see on page 216, our elbow is not fitting makeup as it is on our screen. So we need to get our elbow, the P leave of our elbow, to the correct elevation like it is in the book. So there's a few different ways. We can cue the P leave and see, again, I'm in millimeters, but if you cue the P leave, you'll see what the elevation of your elbow is currently. We want to get that down to a certain elevation, which in our book it tells you exactly what that elbow needs to be at. It needs to be at 108 feet 9 inches. So you could put move through up, and in this case you would put 108 feet 9 inches. Since I'm in millimeters, I've got to use millimeters. Hit enter, and you can see it automatically lowers our elbow, puts it in the correct elevation. Again, you're going to want to put move through up 108 foot 9, and that's going to get you where you want to be. Okay, so now looking at our book, the next component you can see is a T. So I'm going to come over here to the window, and I'm going to pick a T and pick create. Okay, so it's automatically connected it to our elbow, but if you look at your book, it's not exactly the way we want it to be. Okay, we want the flow to be going into the center of the pipe and not into one of the sides. So that's an easy fix. We're going to change the arrive point of this T by typing arrive 3 and hitting enter, typing in connect, and you can see now it's changed the direction of our T, because now we want to arrive into the branch part of the T, and then the leave we left alone. Okay, so two simple commands: arrive space 3, because we're changing the arrive point, and then we just connected it. Okay, so again, referring to our book, we can see that our T is not fitting makeup to our elbow like it is excuse me, like it is in the screen. So there's a few different things we can do. We can look at our plan drawing and try and determine the coordinate of that T. But I think the easiest thing to do is to now start working in backwards mode and start working from the pump suction nozzle, working backwards, because as you can see in the book, that is fitting makeup from the nozzle. Okay, so this is where your member list is going to come in handy, and you'll see why. If we want to start working in backward mode, we click this backward here in our window, and let me show you a few things. Let's go back to forward mode. Okay, our hierarchy has our components in order as they should be: gasket, flange, elbow, T. Okay, if I change this to backward mode, and it has the same thing in the members list over here. If I change this to backwards mode, you can see our Design Explorer remains the same, but our member list, the window that I like to use, has now switched. See how if I switch back to forwards, puts it forward to back. If I go to backwards, now we're in backwards to forwards, which is why I like this window, because I can see exactly the order I'm working in. When you start going backwards, it gets pretty confusing only using the Design Explorer, so that's why I like to use the members list. Okay, so we are in backwards mode, and we need a gasket now to connect to this suction nozzle. Now, again, you always want to see where you're at in the hierarchy. We're sitting at this T. If I hit gasket right now, it's going to put it in next in line after this T. It's going to put it between the T and the elbow, which would be right here. And that's not what we want. So I'm going to make sure I'm at the branch level. I'm going to hit gasket. Okay, highlight gasket, hit create. As you can see, it put it exactly where we want it, because I made sure that I was at the branch level and I knew exactly where I was at. Okay, next thing we need is a flange. I'm going to highlight that, hit create. The next thing we need is a reducer, because we are working in 6-inch. And if you're ever curious about what you're working in, you can cue the PA or P leave of the component you're on, and it tells us, I'm sorry, it's 8-inch. Okay, 200 millimeters is 8-inch. Okay, and we know that our other nozzle is a 10-inch, so we know that we need a reducer in here. So let's pick a reducer. Okay, so we're going from 200, 10-inch is 250, just want to make sure. Okay, so I'm going to pick the outlet of the reducer. I'm going to click OK, it goes ahead and puts that in for us. Oh, but now that's a concentric. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's get rid of that. And let me uncheck default. Okay, so reducer, create, and here we get a choice of concentric or eccentric. So we want a 250 eccentric. Sorry. Like I said, you want to make sure you know exactly where you're sitting or you'll get an error. Okay, so reducer, let's try that again. 250 pound eccentric. Click OK. West. Okay, now as we can see in the section view, section AA on page 216, that reducer is a top flat. So our reducer came in bottom flat. That's an easy fix. Connect and P3 is up. Sorry. Okay, P3 represents the flat side of an eccentric reducer. So we just type that in and it flips it for us. And we're going to continue working. The next item we need is an elbow. The default is a 90. Hit OK. Okay, so our elbow is facing incorrectly. Let's go direct up. It flips it exactly where we need it. Okay, next thing we need is a flange, gasket, gate, valve. Let's take that default off so we can see all the valves in here. There's gate. Okay, and our hand wheels need to go southeast 45. So let's rotate this 45. We can look down. Rotate again till we get it in the correct position. Okay, very good. Put my view back to where it's kind of isometric. Next item we need is a gasket. Flange, create. Next thing we need is another elbow. Cape in the way we need it. Okay, but it's not at the right elevation. But we can use this to say through next. Raise it up at the right elevation. Okay, so again, we still see the dashed line because our T needs to be moved in line with our next component. So there's a few different ways to do that. We can say through next like we did over here. I prefer to type it in, but we have to change back to forward mode. because we want this next item to be the elbow, so we just type in through next, and voila, we have done the first half of our section line. Now you want to save by hitting this disk. Okay, so there you have, we've run the head from the vessel to the tail, the nozzle of the pump 101.